Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. We are well into the 2026 season of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. Today we'll be discussing week 3 of the actual results. So as usual, we'll go over the stats and summaries for all of our major games, ending up with my choices for the players of the week. We'll do a quick injury update, and then our special feature today is the first edition of this season of Pierce's Tiers, in which I group teams together based on similar things that have happened so far this season and rank them accordingly. Then we'll wrap things up with a week 4 preview, and that'll be it for this week. So without further ado, let's jump on in. First game I want to cover was a close game between the Eagles and the Titans, with the Titans coming out on top. Titans had a lot of offensive success, including on their very first drive when they got past midfield, but a sack fumble by strong safety Ryan Reininger was recovered by Whit Wilson, and the Eagles took over, and that early takeaway led to an Eagles field goal. But the Titans responded with a touchdown drive, which ended with running back Davin Cozart running at 32 yards in for the first touchdown of the day and the first Titans lead, 7-3. Tennessee, on their next drive, crossed midfield again, but this drive ended with Wayne Reimer throwing an interception to Andrew Kangas, and the Eagles would once again turn that takeaway into a field goal, bringing it to 7-6. Wouldn't you know, Tennessee's next drive again crossed into Philadelphia territory, but on the 40-yard line, they went for it on 4th and 8, did not get it. Eagles took over with good field position and got another field goal, giving them the lead 9-7. Going to the third quarter now, on the Eagles' first drive, they went 74 yards in 12 plays, their best offensive performance so far. That ended with an Aaron Poole 3-yard touchdown run, Poole party in the end zone, and the Eagles had a 16-7 lead. Tennessee's next drive, Wayne Reimer threw an interception. Eagles got all the way to the Tennessee 32, but opted for a short punt, so no more points there. Tennessee got the ball again, drove into Eagles territory all the way to the 32. Reimer threw another interception to Kangas. Eagles then crossed into Tennessee territory, but it was Poole's turn for a giveaway. He threw an interception to Sergio Collins. Titans took over, and finally were able to convert that short field into a touchdown drive, going 6 plays, ending with a Joseph Kale 5-yard touchdown run that brought the Titans to within 2 at 16-14. Eagles responded with another field goal drive, pulling the lead to 5, and then with 8:57 remaining, got in range for a 5th attempt. This time, Obada shanked a 21-yard attempt, and the lead stayed at 5. So Reimer then took over for Tennessee. He hit Ray Thompson for 16, and then Joseph Kale for a 30-yard gain. And then he ran it in from 18 yards out, ran it again for the 2-point conversion, which made it 22-19. Eagles punted on their next drive, but Tennessee threw an interception on 3rd and 4, Reimer's 4th of the game, giving Philadelphia the ball at the Tennessee 46-yard line. A golden opportunity for the Eagles to tie or potentially take the lead. They drove in range for a 41-yard field goal, but Obada missed again, going 4 for 6 on the day, and Tennessee then ran out the clock to win the game. So an unusual stat line, the teams combined for over 800 yards of offense, but only scored 41 points, mostly field goals, and Tennessee won despite going -4 in the turnover differential. Wayne Reimer, 219 yards, but 4 interceptions. He did rush for 69 yards and a touchdown. Joseph Kale broke 100 yards on the ground as well, plus 2 catches for 43 yards, and Robinson Terrell, who I believe was part of the trade involving Jose Sola, sending him to Miami with big shoes to fill, and he did fill them, 6 TFLs and 2 sacks on the day. Andrew Kangas, phenomenal day with 3 interceptions. Ryan Reininger with a sack fumble and 11 tackles, but it was Tennessee who came out ahead in this one. 22-19 was the final. Carolina and Detroit had a hard-fought game in which the Lions prevailed 24-27. Detroit scored a touchdown on their very first drive when Bianchi broke free for a 25-yard run. But Carolina responded in 12 plays, with Link converting a 4th and 9 by finding Russell Barnes for a 15-yard gain, and then later Link to George Lovejoy for an 18-yard touchdown to tie the game at 7. On the next drive, Link hit Marco Thompson for a long gain, but he was hit by Omari Stanley and fumbled, and the Lions took over. Later, the Giants were sacked on 3rd and 7, but a defensive holding call gave them a first down. So Detroit chipped away with runs and short passes until Hansen hit Sebi Bizzardo with a short touchdown pass for the Lions to take a 14-7 lead, getting the lead back. Going to the second half now, Link had a great drive, 4 completions for 49 yards, ending with a touchdown pass to Fernando Owens from 8 yards out. That would tie the score at 17 there in the third quarter. However, Kelvin Dupree injured his ankle. It was not serious, but he did not return in this game. But Carolina kept going. Their next drive was 14 plays, 78 yards, including 2 third and long conversions on passes from Link, and ending with Link finding Owens from 5 yards out. Panthers retaking the lead 24-17. Detroit's next drive, they got a field goal. Carolina then went 3 and out, and Detroit got the ball on their own 26-yard line with 6:16 left in the game. Hansen slowly, methodically drove the Lions down the field. He converted a 3rd and 9 with a 13-yard pass to tight end Frank Moore. And later, with 16 seconds left, threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to rookie Tony Sherman for the game-winning score. Hansen on that final drive, 9 for 9 for 62 yards. Incredible clutch performance from the quarterback, out-dueling Link and leading the Lions to a victory. So unlike the last game, where turnovers and field goals were the story, this one was just offensive execution. Hansen 30 of 40 for 245 yards and a couple touchdowns, including the game winner to Sherman, who had 13 catches overall on the day. Fernando Owens had a great day for the Panthers, 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. But ultimately, the Lions just played near perfect football, put themselves in a position to win at the very end of the game, and scored, giving the Panthers no time to come back. And a big victory for the Lions in this one. It was a young QB duel between Travis Kingery and Okoye Landrum as the Saints beat the Buccaneers 16-12. Late in the first quarter, Tampa Bay drove to the New Orleans 27-yard line, but a Kingery interception to Devontae Todd killed that drive without any points. Later in the second quarter, it was Landrum's turn to drive. He hit Sprouse for 13 and his running back Joshua Bassett for 23. And then they added onto that a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty from the defense. That got the Saints in range for a field goal, and they were able to take a 3-0 lead. Just before halftime, Kingery put together a great drive, going 5 for 6 for 64 yards in the hurry-up offense, able to kick a field goal before the half to tie it at 3. In the third quarter, James Taylor had a reception from Travis Kingery, but was hit by Arthur Madrano, fumbled, and the Saints recovered. Landrum hit Josh Bassett again for a 26-yard gain, and that drive ended with backup running back Jalen Johnson running 23 yards for a touchdown, the first one of the game, and the New Orleans taking their lead. On their next drive, Landrum threw an interception to Louis Wong. That gave Tampa Bay a short field. They were not able to gain any first downs, but they were at least in range for a field goal to cut it to 10-6. Same story again later. Landrum interception again to Louis Wong. Again, no first downs for the offense. Again, field goal range, cutting the lead to 10-9. Saints still on top. Then in the fourth quarter, after a Travis Kingery fumble on a run that was recovered by linebacker Lauren Davis on the Bucs' 28-yard line, Saints 3 plays gained no yards, but they did hit the 45-yard field goal, making it 13-9. Tampa Bay then had their best offensive drive of the game. It went 15 plays all the way down the field. They got to the New Orleans 3-yard line, but the defense stepped up, stuffed the Bucs on 2nd and 3rd and goal from the 3. Tampa Bay only got a field goal attempt, making it 13-12 at that point. Bucs would get a stop and get the ball back, but a second Kingery interception with 3:22 left gave the New Orleans a chance to essentially run out the clock. They kicked the field goal in the final seconds to make it 16-12, and that was the final in that one. So the Saints won the game with only 213 yards of total offense, and that's not counting the 7 sacks that Landrum took, which would have dropped him even below that. But Lauren Davis had a fantastic game for the Saints, 12 tackles, forced and recovered fumble. Max Smith had 116 yards from scrimmage with 1 fumble. Matthew Zimmer, 6 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Louise Wong, 2 interceptions. But it wasn't enough, as the Bucs offense could not get into the end zone, and the Saints prevailed 16-12. It was a close AFC South matchup between the Jaguars and the Texans, with Matt Howard leading his team to a close victory. Houston scored first on a 48-yard field goal. But in the second quarter, Jacksonville was able to tie it up. Hugh Kahn had a 15-yard reception and then runs of 17 and 14, getting the Jags in range for a short field goal. And then a bizarre situation in the second quarter, just seconds before halftime, backed up near their own end zone. Travis Neeble took a 5-yard sack on 3rd and 10 into his own end zone, giving Jacksonville the 5-3 lead going into the locker room. Texans would come out and take the lead back after a punt return put them in great field position at the Jacksonville 31-yard line. That set Rodgers up for a 48-yard field goal for the unusual 6-5 lead. Jacksonville would respond, getting into Houston territory to the 25, and Ray kicking a field goal, making it 8-6 Jacksonville. Finally, in the fourth quarter, someone got into the end zone. Jeff Hawley broke a 54-yard run on a draw play, and then a more traditional run play the next for a 17-yard touchdown. That made it 13-8. Texans with the first touchdown of the game and a lead. But on the next drive, Neville would throw an interception to Zach McCutcheon that was returned to the Texans' 22-yard line. Philippe Johnson, third-string running back for the Jaguars, actually scored this rushing touchdown. They failed the 2-point conversion, so it was 14-13, which sounds like a normal score, but this is one of the most bizarre ways to get to 14 I've ever heard. Jacksonville then, on their next drive, Howard hit Jake Bolton for 36. Jacksonville drove to the Houston 7-yard line. Looked like they were going to build their lead, but Howard threw a pick to Jeffrey McBrady at the 7-yard line, and the Texans still had life, down by 1. Jeff Hawley broke another run of 52 yards, getting them in field goal range, and Houston nailed it with 6:21 to go, making it 16-14. But then it was Ryan Peterson's turn for a big play. He got a 48-yard run that set up Ray with a 25-yard field goal to take the lead 17-16 with 3:39 to go. Houston got the ball back, but on 3rd and 10, huge sack by defensive tackle Reyes DeZul ended that drive. Instead of going for on like 4th and 20, Houston punted, trying to get a stop to get the ball back, but Jacksonville got 2 first downs, and that was enough to kill the rest of the clock and escape with the victory. Both quarterbacks struggling, under 200 yards with a couple of picks each. The Jaguars, though, were able to run the ball successfully, 109 yards rushing from Hugh Kahn and 107 from Ryan Peterson. Bizarrely, it was third-string running back Philippe Johnson who scored the Jaguars' only touchdown, leading to this stat line: Philippe Johnson, 4 carries, -2 yards rushing, and a score. An unusual stat for an unusual game, but the Jaguars will take the win. On Sunday night, we had a shootout between the Raiders and the Chargers, with the Raiders coming back in a big way in the second half to score a victory. So first touchdown was from the Chargers. Rodriguez had a great punt return, getting all the way to the Vegas 37-yard line. Aguilera found Edwin Garcia for an 18-yard gain, and then McGuire for 13. Ultimately, Harrison Rodriguez ran it in from 4 yards out. That made it 10-3 at that point. Later in the second quarter, a Hickson interception by Razul Miller led to another Rodriguez touchdown run, this one from 7 yards out, and the Chargers had a 20-6 lead at the half. Raiders were able to cut into that in the third quarter. Jeffrey Cobbs returned to punt to the Charger 34. Hickson hit blank for a 25-yard gain, setting up Irving for a 3-yard touchdown run, bringing them within 1 score. After the Chargers went 3 and out, Hickson got back on the field, immediately hit his tight end Wayne Brooks for 39, Blank for 17, and that led to a John Milner touchdown run from a yard out, and just like that, the Raiders had tied it at 20. Chargers looked like they were going to get back on top when Aguilera hit Rodriguez for a 47-yard screen pass, but on the next play, Raymond Sanchez, after a catch, hit and by Kevin Cordova, fumbles, Vegas recovers, and took over possession, still tied. Raiders drove to the 29-yard line of the Chargers. Hickson threw another interception to Roswell Miller to give the ball back. Chargers then went 71 yards in 13 plays, capitalizing on that turnover, with Aguilera hitting McGuire for a 22-yard touchdown, back on top 27-20 at that point. Hickson was just warming up. On the next drive, he went 5 for 7 for 71 yards. Milner got another touchdown run from 7 yards out, tying the game at 27 early in the fourth quarter. Then the Chargers went 3 and out, and the floodgates opened. Hickson hit Cobb for 16. He hit his running back Mike Campbell for 15. Touchdown pass to Blank for 6 from 6 yards out to take the lead. A defensive stop. Vegas gets the ball back, but a third interception by Roswell Miller was returned all the way to the Raiders' 8-yard line. So Chargers defense is finding ways to keep them in the game. Chargers drive to the 1-yard line, but are stuffed and 3rd and goal. So instead of tying the game, they kick a field goal. Raiders are still up 34-30. And then for extra insurance, Hickson converted a 3rd and 13 by hitting receiver Cobbs for 18. Then he hit Andrew Richards for 21 to convert a 3rd and 11. Ultimately, that drive ended with his second touchdown pass to Blank from 6 yards out. That made it 41-30 with under 2 minutes to go. Chargers did run the hurry-up offense down to the Raiders' 15-yard line, but time expired, and the Raiders won the game 41-30 after scoring 35 second-half points to take this one. Hickson, 62 passes, including 3 picks, but also 415 yards and 2 scores to James Blank. For the Chargers, Miguel Aguilera was 21-35 for 283 yards and a score and 90 yards rushing. Harrison Rodriguez mostly stuffed in terms of yardage, but he did have that 1 long screen pass and 2 touchdown runs. Roswell Miller, 3 interceptions, but couldn't do it alone on defense, and the Raiders, with that big second-half push, able to come away with the big divisional win. Speaking of divisional wins, on Monday night, the Battle of Ohio resumed with the Browns beating the Bengals 38-29. Cleveland scored on their first drive, going 75 yards in 10 plays. Anku finding William Mass for a 3-yard touchdown run. Later in the first, Frazier would tie it up for the Bengals. He hit Charles Aarons for 21, and that set up Pat Smith for a short touchdown run to tie it at 7. In the second quarter, Juan Mora had his first big run of 48 yards, leading to Anku hitting Mass again for a short touchdown pass. But then Pat Smith would respond just before halftime with a 48-yard touchdown run. Browns would go into the locker room with the 17-14 lead at the half. First drive of the third quarter, Frazier hits Charles Aarons for 14 and then 21, setting up David Taylor for a short touchdown run. And the Bengals got their first lead of the game at 21-17. Browns would respond, though, going 69 yards in 10 plays. Anku running this one in from 3 yards out for the score, putting the Browns back on top 24-21. Later in the third quarter, Moore would break free for a 33-yard run, but he would fumble on the very next play, forced by Aaron Hancock at the Bengal 35-yard line. Browns unable to extend their lead there, but they were eventually able to break through in the fourth quarter after Frazier threw an interception to Colton Hayes. Hayes returning it to the Bengals' 37-yard line. 4 plays later, Moore runs it in for his second touchdown. That was his first touchdown of the day, rushing it in from 4 yards out. That made it 31-21. Browns got a defensive stop, got the ball back, and then Anku went 5 for 5 on a drive to 4 different receivers for a total of 77 yards, the last 12 to Mora, who now got his second touchdown of the game, this one receiving a 12-yard touchdown catch. That made it 38-21 was the score there. Then in the final seconds of the game, Bengals drove all the way down to the 1 yard line, and as time expired, Frazier found Pat Smith for a touchdown as time expired, and a 2-point conversion just because, but that meant the Browns still won 38-29. Dominic Anku had the best game of his young season, 238 yards and 3 passing touchdowns and a touchdown rushing. Juan Mora just shy of 200 total yards from scrimmage and a couple scores. Clinton Gregerson, 6 TFLs on the day. Charles Aarons had a great day for the Bengals, 136 yards and a score on 9 catches. But it was the Browns who won this one in primetime, final score of 38-29. As for the rest of the Week 3 scoreboard, the Jets, having the most favorable away game you can have, playing in East Rutherford, blanked the Giants 28-0. Noel went 15 of 25 for 145 yards, 2 scores and a pick, and also 50 yards rushing. The Jets' defense held the Giants under 200 total yards for the game. Miami beat Buffalo 48-33. Hammonds 35 of 44 for 506 yards and 5 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance from the reigning NFL MVP. Pittsburgh defeated Green Bay 27-16. Morris just 10 of 18 passing for 118 yards, a couple scores, 16 carries, 141 yards, and another touchdown for Morris. Kansas City, Chop continued his winning ways, beating the Colts 23-6. Chop 19 of 29, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 70 rushing yards as well. Washington defeated Atlanta 39-21. Morrison had 3 passing touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone to help the Commanders break away in this one. Dallas beat New England 23-7. Vladimir Dawson 32 carries, 122 yards. He did have a couple fumbles, but credit to Dallas offensive tackle Kevin Escobar, who fell on both of them. So 2 fumble recoveries for the offensive tackle, helping the Cowboys to victory there. Minnesota beat Chicago 15-9, or you could call it 5-3 in a battle of field goals. Defensive tackle Neil Henry had 7 tackles for loss for the Vikings. Kudos to the kickers in this game, who went a combined 8 for 8, providing all of the scoring, but Minnesota ultimately getting the win. The Rams had a critical victory from the NFC West, defeating Seattle 30-19. Avila was 35 of 49 for 563 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 picks. Back to his Avila ways, where every stat is just super high, and the Rams score enough to win. Arizona defeated Baltimore 20-3. Baltimore finally feeling the effects of that mid-season scheme shift to air raid. Struggled mightily. Puna Edwards, 30 of 45, 177 yards, a touchdown, and a pick for the young rookie. Finally, Denver had no trouble beating San Francisco 41-10. Ryan Johnson and Thomas Gesick combined for over 200 rushing yards together and 4 rushing touchdowns in the win. So that leads to our players of the week. Have to call out Dean Hammonds for his 5 touchdown performance, over 500 yards passing for Miami. Robert Morris, premier dual threat quarterback, 118 yards passing, 141 rushing, and 3 total touchdowns. Juan Mora, a couple touchdowns and nearly 200 yards combined for him on just 19 touches. James Blank, a pair of scores for 132 yards on 11 catches. Big TFL numbers from Matthew Zimmer and Neil Henry with 6 and 7 respectively. Zimmer also 4 sacks for Tampa Bay in that game. Andrew Kangas of the Eagles and Rasul Miller of the Chargers both had 3 interceptions on the day. And then big shout out to Hronis Wells of the Vikings, who went 5 for 5 on field goals with a long of 50 yards to lead the Vikings to that 15-9 victory over the Bears. So congratulations to all these players on being named my players of the week. Now for a quick injury update. We have a couple of new names on the list. The big one here is Indianapolis receiver Daniel Ellswick, one of the top receivers in the league, going down with a hamstring injury. This is going to leave him out for 5 weeks. It's a significant blow for the Colts, by far the best receiver on their roster. The Rams also losing starting defensive end William Poku with an ACL injury. It's not a full tear. He's going to be out about 4 weeks. They will definitely feel that loss as well. And then some other big names that we are pulling forward from week's path. Timothy Greganis of the Cardinals, still out from his preseason injury with the PCL there. Philip Nagel, defensive tackle for the Broncos, with that ACL injury, going to miss significant time. And then guards John Massey and Wilton Longa of the Texans and Giants, respectively, going to miss a few weeks each with bicep injuries. So Ellswick is the big news there. We'll continue to track their recovery as we go through the rest of the year. So our special segment today is our first 2026 edition of Pierce's Tiers. This is where I group the teams, all 32 teams in the league, into categories based on similarities they have, and then rank those categories. This is mostly a narrative exercise. I'm not necessarily saying that one team in a tier above another would win head-to-head, but again, grouping teams based on their similarities and trying to generally keep the tiers in some kind of order. Also, within each tier, the teams are just listed alphabetically. So the bottom of one tier is not necessarily as close to the top of another tier. That's all just alphabetical. But here we go. So I have 9 tiers to put these 32 teams in. And we're going to start up the top with some familiar faces. At the top, these were our top 4 seeds last year, 1 and 2 in the AFC, 1 and 2 in the NFC. And they are having great success again this year. They're a combined 12 and 0. And for the most part have been dominating opponents. So nothing too unexpected here at the very top as we look at the Broncos, Rams, Dolphins, and Commanders at the top of my rankings through 3 weeks. We do have a few teams who the offense has really been humming, putting them in a high spot. All these teams are averaging more than 29 points per game. Carolina has scored 94, Pittsburgh 88, and the Chiefs have scored 108 points through 3 weeks. You can have yards and talent, but ultimately it comes down to scoring more points than the other team. And these 3 with their offenses are well positioned to do just that. Now a category which I call overclocked, which means some teams that I think are in general overperforming relative to expectations, or maybe just in game results, overperforming relative to their overall performance. So first we're going to talk about Cleveland. Cleveland is allowing 27 points per game on defense, and they have a second-year quarterback. Despite all of that, they are 2-1. The Raiders had only, after a Week 1 victory, had only scored 15 points in 6 quarters and looked like they were looking down a second consecutive loss until they came alive against the Chargers and put 35 points up in the second half to come back and win that one. The Jets are a miracle kick return from Philadelphia away from a 3-0 start. Noel has done a phenomenal job helping that offense and turning them around. So this is a case where I thought they would be better, but they have really impressed me so far, the way they're playing. They are one play away from 3-0, and they have a plus 32 point margin through 3 weeks. Tennessee was ranked very low from both me and Alex in kind of our preseason high-level reviews. I predicted that Tennessee was going to end their 4-year playoff run. So far, that is not the case. They have allowed only 35 points total to 3 quality opponents. So Titans really impressive so far through 3 weeks. Next, we have some teams who have experienced some success, but I question a bit of that based on their opponents. Obviously, it's only 3 weeks in, so it's hard to talk about strength of schedule because, if you play 3 teams, you are now a third of their schedule. So hard to say for sure, but I have some suspicions about some of these early records. Arizona has beaten 2 rookie quarterbacks, including one who was on a scheme change just now in Baltimore. So 2-1 is impressive, but I feel like it comes with a bit of an asterisk. Minnesota has beaten New Orleans with a Corey Landrum, and they beat Chicago with 5 field goals, 15-9. So again, an interesting 2-1 start. The Giants, they beat a winless San Francisco team with a rookie quarterback in Romero. They beat the Bears, and then they just got absolutely plastered by the Jets, getting shut out by them. So again, weighing those 2 wins against the big loss. And then Seattle beat a winless Atlanta team, and they also beat the New Orleans Saints, also with 5 field goals. So no touchdowns in one of their victories there. So again, wins are all that matters at the end, but through 3 weeks, I wonder if these early successes might not be indicative of their performance when they get into the meatier part of their schedule. Speaking of meat, we have the opposite of the easy schedule guys. These are teams who have gone through the meat grinder, and maybe, when you look at their standings right now through 3 weeks, take a look at their opponents and think that there might be reason that these guys can recover. Now, it gets admittedly a little tricky because a lot of these teams have played each other, and so that's kind of a self-reinforcing cycle where I say, okay, Team A is good because they beat Team B, and Team B is good because they only lost to a good team that is Team A, right? It kind of references itself. So there's a bit of that going on here, but I do think based on their entire schedule, there's a reason to put these teams together. So Atlanta is 0-3, but I've lost to Seattle, and then Carolina and Washington, who are in my top 2 tiers. Detroit has beaten Philadelphia and Carolina, especially this last game against the Panthers, extremely impressive. But then they got absolutely crushed by Green Bay, which is, again, what kind of a team is this? Are they the team that got crushed by Green Bay, or are they the team that played nearly perfect and beat Carolina? Similarly, Green Bay looked great in that victory over Detroit, and then their 2 losses to the Rams and to Pittsburgh, who, again, in my upper 2 tiers. So reason to believe this team is good with a quality win and a couple of quality losses. Indianapolis beat the Browns and then lost to Tennessee and Kansas City, again, who are in my upper tiers there. And then finally, the Eagles nearly went 0-3, had that miracle win against the Jets in a shootout, and then losses to Detroit and Tennessee. So taken as a group, no individual, top tier teams there, but taken as a group, and especially compared to teams like the Cardinals and the Seahawks and Giants, certainly been feeling the pressure with their opponents through 3 weeks. So yeah, these are teams that are very much in it, have had some tough games early, and we'll see if they can turn it around through the rest of their schedule. And then in opposition to my overclocked teams, here are some undercooked teams that I thought would be a little bit better than they are. Again, it's early. Again, we're kind of self-referencing who they've played against. So I'm not quite sure yet. But here's how I see it. Dallas beat a winless Patriots team and then lost to an undefeated Washington team. Okay, so 2 expectations there. But then against the Jets, they only scored 12 points. So I'm hinging a lot on that Week 1 game because everything else has been kind of predictable. But definitely seems like they're feeling the loss of Noel in that trade, and that's having an effect on the whole team's performance. Jacksonville went all in to give Matt Howard a bunch of weapons, and then they barely beat Houston, and they had big losses to Carolina and Pittsburgh. Now, Carolina and Pittsburgh, very good teams in my second tier, so why is Jacksonville not in the meat grinder category? Well, they lost to Carolina. They were losing by 25 to Carolina before the backups came in. And then to Pittsburgh, they were losing by 34 before they put up some points against backups. So Jacksonville, 2 big losses to good teams, and then just barely getting by Houston without Ryan Johnson doesn't give me a lot of confidence for them going forward, frankly. And then the Chargers also barely beat New England in their win and then lost to Denver. We're looking good against Vegas until they collapsed in the second half. So a close win against a bad team, and then particularly two critical division losses early. That's going to be tough for the Chargers to come back from. My next tier is pretty simple. This is a young QB category. These are teams that are growing and learning and are still going to have some speed bumps along the way. So pretty straightforward, as I said. Baltimore with Savage, and now with that scheme change that they're going through, could very well be looking at an 0-4 start there. The Texans with Nebel, again, without Johnson, who really helped with being part of that 1-2 rushing punch. He's in Denver now. Saints with Landrum. He's a second-year guy. I do still believe in Landrum, but that one's going to take time coming on board. And then Romero and Kingery for the 49ers and Buccaneers, respectively. I think there's a strong future for both of those players on both of those teams, but they're 3 weeks into their rookie season, so give them some time. Below that tier, we have a couple of half teams, basically based on the way their defenses have been playing. Buffalo has allowed 99 points through 3 weeks. That's not going to get it done. Cincinnati has allowed 113 points through 3 weeks, which explains their start. The only time either of these teams gave up less than 30 points was in week 2 when they played each other. And even then, that was 27-20. So other than playing each other, these teams are 0-4 and have given up 30 or even 40 plus points a game. Their offenses are not equipped to put up those kind of numbers and compete in those kinds of games. So with defenses full of holes, I think it's going to be a long year for the Bills and the Bengals in the AFC. But all the way at the bottom, in my 9th and final tier, are my contenders for the number 1 pick, based on what I've seen so far, and that is Chicago and New England. Chicago has yet to score an offensive touchdown against a starting defense. They were being shut out against Washington until the backups came in, and they scored a courtesy touchdown at the very end. And then in their last 2 games, they have scored a total of 6 field goals, and that is it. So an 0-3 start for the Bears with no touchdowns, no offensive touchdowns against starting defenses to show for it. New England has done a little better with 1 very close loss, but they've still only scored 30 points through 3 games. And the reason I didn't put them in the young QB category is I think Oliveros has serious question marks. 21 of 45, 178 total passing yards through 3 games, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and here's the real kicker for a scrambler: 8 carries, 3 yards. So Oliveros not getting it done with his legs or his arm, and that F potential means that it might be a long wait until he does, especially with the pieces around them. So I think Bears and Patriots are currently not only winless, but my top contenders for ultimately getting the top pick in next year's draft. But that is it for this first edition of Pierce's Tiers. Let me know what you think in the comments. And we'll revisit in a couple weeks here on the SimNFL show. So what's coming up in week 4? Reminder, this is not for next week because we will be off for real life Thanksgiving, but the following week we will continue with week 4 of SimNFL. We're going to start things off with another rookie QB battle with Tampa Bay going to San Francisco. One of these teams and one of these rookie QBs is presumably going to get their first win in prime time on Thursday night. And then in the early section Monday, we have Minnesota going to Cleveland, a pair of 2-1 teams facing off across conferences. And then the surprising 3-0 Titans are going to go to Carolina to face the 2-1 Panthers. Some great games in the afternoon as well. Vegas is at Detroit. The Chargers are at Kansas City. Yet another early divisional game for the Chargers, seeing if they can stop David Chop. And then Pittsburgh is taking their undefeated season to Seattle to face the 2-1 Seahawks. On Sunday night, we have a NFC East matchup between Washington at Philadelphia. See if the Eagles can break the Commanders' streak there at home. And then Monday night, we have a Super Bowl II rematch with the undefeated Rams going to Denver to face the undefeated Broncos. A great first place game from last year. Should be a lot of points. We have a passing offense versus the Rams and a great rushing offense in Denver. Excited to see where that game ends up. But that is it for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by. Again, happy Thanksgiving to all of our Americans out there. And then to all of our users and all of our Sims, I say good luck and have fun.